and share the PowerPoint slide for today. Okay, can all of you see the PowerPoint slide on the national income chapter? Can?
Yes.
Okay, good, thanks. All right. So in week 3, before the mid-semester holiday, okay, we already study the law of demand, right? Whereby we study the behavior of individual households or consumers in response to the price change of product. And in chapter number 4, we also study how sensitive the consumer or the supplier respond to the change of product price. And in chapter 5, we also study how the supplier determine the cost of production. And in chapter number 6 and 7, we also study 4 different types of market structure on how each firm in the market structure respond or compete among each others due to the characteristics of market structure, right? So these are that we have studied before. And these few chapters actually are considered as microeconomics. Microeconomics. Huh? So what is the meaning of microeconomics study then? Actually, microeconomic study is analyzing how the individual household and the firms, or called as seller, respond and in the economy. Okay, so in short, is for microeconomics, is like we only study individual household or firm behavior. Okay, so it's in a small part only in terms of the response to product price change. Okay, we also study how the individual consumer utilize the income, how the supplier generate the income as well in each different market structure. Okay, and when we analyze the response of the consumer, we also focus on one product only. Yeah, when you look at the demand curve, right, one demand curve is only for one product, right? So all of these studies are considered as microeconomics. Then on the other hand, how about macroeconomics then? Macroeconomics would be cover the entire country economy, the entire nation of economy. So that will be include, we'll focus on study on the whole country national income, okay, for the whole country. Another example would be, we can also will include the total employment. Total employment means number of people who can get job in an economy or a nation. Economy here is referred to a nation or a country. Okay, we also study how the overall demand and overall supply react to the price change of overall product. Okay, and we call this as aggregate demand and aggregate supply. And the price level is called as the overall price level. Everything we include together and we get the average number, and that will be the overall price level for the nation or a country for a year. Okay, so in short, macroeconomics study is cover the study for the entire country or nation. Okay, the whole thing, instead of just focus on individual consumer or firms. Okay, so clear about this? So in short, microeconomics is focusing on the behavior of individual household and firm. Whereby for macroeconomics is study on the entire phenomenon of the whole country economy. Okay, any questions so far? So for macroeconomics, there are 3 things that we are going to focus on. There are 3 issues that we are going to focus, which are the economic growth, followed by inflation, and followed by the unemployment. So we are going to study in more detail in the next chapter later on for these 3 macroeconomics issues. These are the 3 major macroeconomic issues that a country has to be addressed from time to time. So far so good. Any question about the difference between micro and macroeconomics? I stop for a while. So far so good. So that means like in the first half of the semester, we mostly focus on microeconomics. But start from this chapter, today's chapter, we are going to focus on macroeconomics. Okay. All right, any questions so far before we proceed to the next slide? No, okay. So the next slide is I'd like to introduce to you what is the meaning of national income. So national income is actually the total of personal incomes. Okay, total of personal income. So that means is total of individual income from household and also the firms. Firms is called as the producer. Yeah? So by summing up all the incomes, then this will be called as the national income. Okay, so the bigger the national income of a country, it implies that the more rich is the country. Yeah? The more rich is the country. If the national income of a country is higher, so that means the country is more rich. Okay, so what is the reason we want to calculate the national income? There are a few reasons. Actually, the national income can be used to measure the standard of living of a country. Yeah? So if the national income is high, then we can conclude that for that country, most of the citizens or the residents in that country are wealthy, okay, are quite rich, right? Able to survive, yeah? And also having more quality products or service. Okay, and another reason we want to calculate the national income is so that, right, we can also do comparison of the income across few years. We can do time series analysis. Okay, we can compare maybe from 2000 to 2020, the national income of a country, whether it's increased or reduced. Okay, so we can do comparison of the national income across a few years. What is the reason we want to do so? Because by doing this, this can help the government to do the economic planning. Okay, the government can use all this information on the data to improve the economic growth of a country. So this is the reason why we want to study national income. So far so good. Okay, so usually the developed countries means the well-off countries, European countries usually, UK, US, these are developed countries. Usually their national income will be higher compared to the third world country. Third world country mostly will be like Africa, African countries. Okay, so if you check the map, the world map here, the green one means those countries are rich. The blue one means average income level. The red one means the country are poor, okay, low income. So this is the statistics we get from the 2013 National Accounts at Glance 2013. Okay. So most of the poor countries are here in Africa mostly, and also somewhere near here, this part. Okay, should be Pakistan, Bangladesh, and here we have Laos, yeah, and this is belong to Indonesia as well, this part. Okay, so far so good. All right. Okay, then how to calculate the national income then? How to calculate the national income of the country? Okay, before we study three approaches to calculate the national income, I would like to introduce to you a model. Yeah, this model is called as the two sectors circular flow model. The reason I like to introduce this model to you is to show you actually in a country, the total expenditure is equal to total income and is also equal to the total final product value produced by a country within a year. Okay, so this model actually is to justify why total income, okay, of a country is equal to total spending of a country, and is also equal to total final product value of a country. These three are the same. So I like to use this model to justify or to show you why. Okay, what is the reason behind that? So this circular flow model actually is to show you how do the goods, services, and money of a country move between the household and firms. Okay, so in this model, we assume that there are only two sectors in an economy. Only two sectors. So what are the sectors? The two sectors are household sector and also the firm sector. Yeah? Household is referred to the buyers. Okay, household in this case here is referred to the buyer or consumer in an economy, or in a country or nation. Yeah? Firms is referred to the producer or seller in an economy. Okay, so under this model, we only assume that there are only two sectors. There is no government sector. If include government, there will be three sector model. Okay, and in this model also we assume that there is no international trade. If no international trade, that means it's a closed economy. Okay, this is a closed economy without international trade. If involve international trade, we call this as the open economy, as it involve four sectors then. Okay, so now it's only two sectors, household and firms. Okay, for this model, there are a few assumptions. Maybe may not be happen in the real world, but this is the assumption from this model. Yeah. Okay, according to this model is the household will own all the factors of production. Remember the four factors of production we have studied in chapter 1, right? So in this model, it's assumed that the household will own the four factors of production, which are the, what are the four factors of production? Can you recall?
Capital.
Yes, good. Yep, capital.
Labor.
Labor. Yeah.
Land.
What else? Entrepreneurship, right? Plus another one. Land. Okay. Land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. These four factors of production all are owned by household. For this model, only. Okay. All these four factors of production are owned by the household. Okay. And the household, okay, the household also assume that what they earn, right, they are not going to save any money. Yeah, they are going to spend all of the money they earn. So that means the total income is equal to the total expenditure. Okay, this is the assumption given for this model, right? So in short, for this model, it's assumed that there is no saving among the household. All of the money revenue received by the household will be spent. No saving. Okay, assumption. All right. And how about the firm then? The firm, okay, will only produce finished goods. That means the final goods only. There is no intermediary goods. All the goods are finished goods produced by the firm. Okay, this is only assumption. All right, assumption only. Okay. And there is no government intervention, no taxation charged by the government. There is no government spending. That means government is not involved in this economy. Okay, for this two sector economy, government is not going to involve, and there is no international trade. All right, this is only assumption. Okay, all right. So based on this assumption, let's try to observe how do the goods, services, and the money flow, between these two sectors. Okay, so in fact there are two markets. One is the product market. That means the factors of production market. Product market means the factors of production market. Okay, so in this product market, right, the firms, okay, will try to buy factors of production from household. The firm will buy the factors of production from the household. Okay, I think I better start with the product market. Okay, I start from market. So product market is referred to the goods and services. Goods and services. Okay, so in the product market, the household, the consumer, will buy goods and services from the firm. Okay, will buy goods and services from the firm. So in return, the firms can get revenue. Can get the revenue from the household or consumer. Okay, so this is happen in the product market. Okay, then by using the revenue received after the firms receive the revenue. Okay, the firm will try to use this revenue to employ factors of production from household under the factor market. So this will include the land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. Okay, we call this as factors of production. Yes.
Can you repeat again? I don't understand.
Okay, all right. So for the circular flow of income, there are two markets. Okay, we assume that there are two markets, which are the product market and factor market. Okay, so product market is referred to the market whereby goods and services transaction will be happen between the household and firms. Okay, so in the product market, the household will buy goods and services from firms. Okay, so when buying the goods and services, that means in return, the household has to pay money to firms, right? So this money will be considered as revenue for the firm. So okay, for the product market, right? Okay, then how about the factor market? In the factor market is the involvement of transaction for factors of production. So in the factor market, the firms will use the revenue received to buy 4 factors of production from household. Okay, and in return, the firm has to pay wages to household for the labor, right? And firms also have to pay rent for the land to the household as well. Firms also have to pay dividends for capital, and firms also have to pay profit, okay, for entrepreneurship to the household as well. Okay, so far so good. So because of this, there is no saving, there is no intermediate goods, all are finished goods. All right. So as a result, right, it is observed that the total expenditure on final goods among the household actually is equal to the income received by the household for 4 factors of production. Okay, so due to no saving, no intermediate goods, that means the total expenditure on the final products consumed by the household is equal to the income earned by all the 4 factors of production. Okay, so in short, this model actually is to explain to you why the total expenditure in a country is equal to the total income of the country. Okay, any questions so far? Okay, before I proceed to the next slide, the most important for this slide is to explain to you this concept. Total expenditure is equal to total income. And this is the most important concept that would like to be delivered to you through these 2 sector circular flow of income. Okay, so far so good. All right. Okay. Then, okay, now is how to calculate the national income of a country. Then, national income of a country. Okay, there are 3 approaches that we can use to calculate the national income, which approach, expenditure approach, or income approach. Okay, so if we follow the belief of the circular flow model, right, we may find that actually no matter which approach we use to calculate the national income, the national income value for these 3 approaches should be similar. You'll get the similar result, should be the similar value. Okay, this is the belief of macroeconomics. Output approach, expenditure approach, and also the income approach method will provide the same value of national income. Okay, and there is a term used for national income. We call this as gross domestic product. Okay, so this is one of the measurements used to calculate the national income. So gross domestic product is referred to national income. Okay, so the higher the GDP, the higher the national income of a country. Okay, I stop for a while. Okay, so far. All right. If I then will start from the output approach. Okay, if we use the output approach, then how to do the calculation for the GDP or the national income? Then okay, output approach is also called as the value-added approach. Okay, the method to calculate the national income for this approach is to sum up all the value of final outputs produced by a country in a year. Okay. So all the final outputs. Intermediate products cannot be included. We only include the value of final outputs produced by a country within a year, if we want to use the output approach. Okay, so let us try one. Maybe okay. Before that, before we can do an example, probably we can check also. Okay, then what are the GDP? What are the activities that have to be excluded from the output approach GDP calculation? Okay, these are the following goods that we should not include in the output approach calculation. The first one is intermediate goods. Okay, intermediate goods are unfinished goods. These are the goods that only used to produce more products in future. Okay, intermediate goods are the goods used for producing more products in the future. It's not for sale, okay, but it's to produce more product, and we call this as intermediate products. Okay, so intermediate products are like, for instance, machine. Okay, machine to produce or transform the input into output. Machine is considered as intermediate goods. It can be computer, can be printing machine, can be aircon. All right, these are the intermediate goods. What is the reason why these intermediate goods should not be included in the output approach GDP calculation? Is because if we include these intermediate goods, then this will create the double counting problem. That means we double count. Double count means we count the intermediate goods value 2 times. Okay, we'll count the production 2 times if we include the intermediate goods. Okay, so we have to ignore the intermediate goods when we want to use the output approach. Okay. Okay, second goods that we should not include in the GDP calculation for the output approach is if the products are produced only for the personal consumptions only, for self-consumptions only. So this usually happen in the village, right? The farmers usually just produce the agriculture products for family consumption only, for own use only, without trading in the market. Then this is considered as self-consumption products. So these products also should not be included in the GDP calculation if the output approach is used. Okay. So you have to remember this. So one of the example would be the agriculture outputs, okay, produced by the farmers without selling in the market, but it's only for the personal use or for family use only. Okay. How about other type of products? Okay, if the products are non-productive transaction, that means if the business transaction do not bring any additional value to the goods, is also included in the GDP calculation. Okay, so some of the example will be like this. The public transfer payments. This is actually the donation. It can be the donation or the welfare payment from the government to the poor. Okay. Public means government. The government transfer payment. Okay, so these are the funds actually used to help the poor. Okay, help the poor, the low-income people, to in order to survive or to maintain their living standard by the government. Okay, and this fund actually, once received by the poor people, usually there is no return. There is no return or no contribution in the production activities. As a result, the public transfer payment should not be included in the GDP calculation. Okay. Another type of transfer payment will be from the private. Okay, from the private. So it can be the money given by parents to children during Christmas or during the festive season. Okay, or pocket money. Okay, private transfer payment can be also like this lady. This lady donate money to the beggar. It's also considered as private transfer payment. Okay, so this private transfer payment, right, will not generate productive economic activities from this money. As a result, it's also not counted in the GDP calculation. Should not be counted in the GDP calculation as well. Okay, next business transaction will be involving the stock market transaction, like selling the stocks, bonds, shares. These also not included in the GDP calculation by using the output method. Okay, so business transaction involving stocks, bonds, shares of the company are not included in GDP calculation. Okay. Okay, last one is the second-hand products. Second-hand products like can be cars, used cars, jeans, houses. Okay, this second-hand, if these are the all house, also cannot be counted in the GDP. Why? Because all these products are already counted one time in GDP when the product being produced in the past. Okay, they're already been counted in the GDP, so we should not double count the second-hand products anymore. Okay, so it should be excluded from the GDP calculation. Okay, so for this slide, you need to remember these are the goods or business transaction activities that should not be included in GDP calculation if output method is applied. Okay, I stop for a while. Any questions so far? Okay, yeah. All right. So now let us try one example on how to do national income or GDP calculation if output approach is applied. Okay, so this is a case study. So assume that firm R produces wheat value at 100. So the value of the wheat is $100. Okay, and then firm I purchases the wheat from firm R at 100 and produces flour that it sells for $130. Okay, so buying wheat at 100 and produce the wheat becomes flour and sell for $130. Okay, next sentence. Firm F purchases the flour for 130 from firm I, okay, and uses this flour to produce bread and sells the bread for $180. Okay, so since in this case here, there are three products. We have wheat. Okay. Oh. We also have flour. Okay, we also have bread. Yeah, three items. All right. But you may find that actually the final goods actually is bread, right? Because the bread actually is the resources used are wheat and flour, right, to produce the bread. So bread actually is the final product. Okay, and in this case here, wheat and the flour are considered as intermediate products, intermediate goods used to produce the final goods, which is bread. So in this case here, we only should calculate we should only include the final value of bread in the GDP calculation. So as a result, the answer is equal to $180 contributed to GDP among these three business activities. So far so good. Okay, so far okay, Another way to do a calculation is you can use 100 of wheat, plus $30 from firm I. Okay, actually firm I contribute $30 and firm F contribute $50 for the business activity. Okay, so if you use 100 plus 30 and plus 50, you also will get 180. But the easiest way to do the calculation for output approach is just need to focus on which one is the final product. So in this case, bread is the final product. So we just use the value of bread as the contribution of GDP. Okay, so answer should be equal to 180. Okay, one more example. Let us try again. Okay, this is another case study by using the output approach. Okay, firm A produces the necessary raw materials and sells them for 1,000 to firm B. Okay, so that means from this business transaction, able to generate 1,000 business activity. Yeah. Okay. Then firm B manufactures the raw materials into finished goods and sell them to a retailer, which is firm C for 1,800. All right. Then finally, the firm C sell these finished goods to the household for 2,500. Okay. So what is the contribution of GDP for all these activities here? Answer is 2,500 because this is the final goods value in the business transaction. So answer is equal to 2,500. So far okay? So far so good? Any question on the upward approach? Okay, if not, then I'll move on to the second approach. We call it the expenditure approach. So if using the expenditure approach, then how to do the calculation on the GDP then? Okay, so actually is have to sum up all the expenses, okay, expenses that are purchased by a nation in a year, purchased by a nation in a year. So what are the expenses that have to be included then under this method then? Okay, so if we assume that, right, the economy is an open economy which involve household, firms, government, and international trade, and then the total expenditure will involve the purchaser from these four sectors. Okay, there are four sectors involved. If we assume that the economy is an open economy, so this will involve households. Households are referred to the individual consumers or buyers. Okay, and the second expenditure would be from the firms. Firms will be the private producer or private sellers. Okay, the third sector is from government. Okay, government spending. So we are going to look at one by one later on. And the third one is involving the transaction of international business, which involve the export and import. So the net export is equal to export minus import. Okay, so usually we use C. We use C to represent consumption among the household. We use C to represent consumption among the household. We use C, big C. Okay, I is used for the expenditure or investment of firms. Okay, this can be referred to the expenditure. We use I as symbol. Okay, G is the government spending. Okay, X is the export and M is the import. Okay, so usually we use this symbol to represent each expenditure. Okay, so let's try to check one by one. What should be included under the consumption of household? C. Okay, so C here is referred to all of the expenditure by household on goods and services. So the goods that can be referred to fresh meat, vegetables, clothing, cars, TV, aircon. Okay, these are the goods. Services can be haircut service, medical care, legal advice. Okay, so if all these expenditure, okay, are spent by the consumer, or we call it as household, then it should be categorized under C. Okay, C. Okay, then for C, then what should not be included then for the when we want to calculate the consumption of household? What are the activities that should not be included? Okay, C should not include the purchases of housing for the purpose of investment. Okay, if one individual, or we call it the household, purchase the house, but the house is not for personal use, but it's only used for investment purpose. Okay, somebody is rich enough, can just buy many houses, but those houses are not going to be consumed by he or herself, but it will be used to rent out to maybe to students, to workers somewhere, the factory. So this is called as investment. So if the house purchase is for investment purpose, it's not included under C, but this will be under the I. Okay, this activity will be under the I. Okay, if the resident or consumer purchase the house for investment purpose should be under the I category, not the C. Okay. Okay, another activity would be used goods. Used good means the second-hand goods. Okay, like second-hand car, second-hand clothing, second-hand bag also should not be included in the GDP. Why? Because the GDP calculation already include those second-hand goods when the goods been sold out in the first time. Okay, so remember the used goods or second-hand goods should not be included in the GDP calculation for C. Okay, another type of business transaction would be involving financial assets like stocks, bonds, shares. This type of business transaction also should not be included in the consumption of households. Okay, any questions so far on the C? Okay, so this one should be I. This one should be included in I, but not C. Okay, if no other question, we'll move on to the calculation of investment then. Okay, so under the I, what are the business activities that we have to include? Okay, so investment here is referred to the expenditure on the production of goods. Okay, and these goods are not for present consumption, but these goods will be used to produce more products in future. Okay, and we call this as the intermediate goods. So what are the examples that it can be? Inventories, the stocks. Okay, this one is referred to inventory. Maybe the firm will keep more stocks in the warehouse. Okay, before in order to meet the market demand during the peak season. So these inventories here are under the investment category, under I. Okay, if expenditure approach is used. Another expenditure occur if the expenditure on the capital goods, business capital goods. Let's say factories, machine, warehouse. These are the capital goods used in order to transform the input into output. Also under this category, under I. Okay. Another one will be if the individual household purchase the house for investment purpose, is also under the I category. Okay. So far, any question on how to calculate the I value, which is investment? This investment is referred to the private investment, the private household and private firms investment. Okay, next one should be the government spending, G. Okay, government expenditure or government spending. So if the expenditure, okay, is from the government, then it will be under this category, under G. So that can be include the government spending from state level or from the federal level. So the spending can be on the education, on controlling the pollution, salary given to the government servants, or sending a rocket to the moon, for instance. These are government expenditure. Okay, and it should be under the G category. Okay, but however, remember, if the business activity or transaction is not involving productive activity, that means cannot generate additional value, okay, to the product or service, then that should not be counted under the government expenditure. Like for instance, the public transfer payment. Okay, so usually the government will provide some financial aid to the poor people. Okay, when the economic condition is not good, some financial aid will be given to the poor, and we call this as transfer payment. So usually the recipient of the transfer payment will not contribute or generate additional value to the products or service or to the whole economic activity. Usually no. So as a result, the transfer payment should not be counted in the government expenditure category. Okay, this should not be included. So we just ignore transfer payment when calculating the government expenditure. Any questions so far? All right. Then the next component of the expenditure approach will be the international trade. Okay, that will involve the export and import. Okay, so the formula is using the export minus the import. So that means the net export can be negative number. Okay, can be negative number. So what is the meaning of export here? Okay, what are the activities or business transaction that have to be included under the export then? Okay, export should include all the spending by the local consumer or firms that produce other countries' product. Okay, so that will be include all the spending made by the local residents or local firms for buying the products that made in other countries. Like for instance, okay, if we want to calculate the Malaysia GDP, so if the Malaysian firm, okay, let's say Malaysian firm, this is export, Okay, let's say now if you want to calculate the Malaysia GDP, all right? So let's say now the Malaysian firms are able to sell the goods to German household. Okay, so what is the impact then? What is the impact? That means that this will increase the export of Malaysia. The export of Malaysia will increase. As a result, the GDP of Malaysia will increase. Okay, so if the Malaysian firms sell the goods to German household, so that means that the export of Malaysia will increase. When the export of Malaysia increase, that means that this will increase the net export. Okay. And when the net export increase, that means the GDP also increase. This will increase the GDP. Okay. On the other hand, how about import? Import is referred to spending on the foreign goods by the domestic residents. Okay. So any products consumed by the local on the foreign goods will be considered as import. Okay. So for example, let's say a Malaysian is a Malaysian citizen buying a car from Japan. Okay, buying a car which was made in Japan. That means this will increase. This will increase the import. When the import increase, this will reduce the GDP. When the import increase, so this will reduce the GDP value. Okay. So what else are what are the activities that should be under import then? Okay, this is another example. A Malaysian takes a vacation, that means having a holiday in Italy. If a Malaysian having a holiday in Italy, is also will increase the import of Malaysia, and this will reduce the GDP. Okay, and another one is a firm in Malaysia buys raw material from American firm. So this will also increase the import and reduce the GDP. Right. So all these three activities actually will increase import. Right. All these will increase import. So when the import increase, what's going to happen? This will reduce GDP. Of Malaysia. Okay. So far so good. Okay, so let's try one example on how to use the expenditure approach to calculate the GDP value for a country. All right, so this table is showing some of the items in the US national income and product accounts in 2015. So based on table below, use the expenditure approach to calculate the US GDP in 2015. So we have to calculate the US GDP in 2015 by using the expenditure approach. Okay, so according to this table, we have consumption expenditure. So this is C, right? Consumption expenditure means C. $12.1 trillion of dollars. Government expenditure is G, right? 3.2. Investment is referred to the household and private firm investment. So it's I. 3.0. Right? Net export is referred to export minus the import. Net export means export minus import. Okay, so already given to us is negative number, negative 0.5. What's the meaning? That means like the export in America is more than the import, and is less than the import. Sorry, yeah. So that means the export is less than the import in America in 2015. Okay, so that means M is more than X, right? M is more than X. Import is more than the export in 2015 in US. As a result, we will get negative number. Okay, so now is the next step is we have to write down the formula for expenditure approach. What's the formula to calculate the GDP value? And this formula you need to remember. Okay, so if using the expenditure approach, the formula to calculate the GDP is C plus I plus G plus X minus M. Okay, so far so good, huh? All right, now the next step is to substitute the number into each variable. So C is from here, 12.1, substitute, replace. I is this number. Okay, G 3.2, right? X minus M is already given to you directly. It's negative 0.5. So substitute negative 0.5 directly to here. Okay, so simplify this and leave the answer in the appropriate unit. Is in trillion of dollars. So you can put $17.8 trillion. Okay. So far, any question on expenditure approach? I stop for a while. Any questions so far? Okay, but the formula you need to remember, all right? This formula you have to remember. Okay, if no other question, we'll move on to the third approach, which is called as the income approach. Okay, so income approach, that means we'll try to sum up the total income received by the 4 factors of production within a year. Okay, so income approach is using the sum of income earned by the 4 factors of production. That will be the GDP. Okay, so can you still recall what are the return can be received by the 4 factors of production? Okay, so I already made one statement here. Yeah, so for labor, the income will be wages, right? Labor, the income will be wages, and then natural land will receive the rent as income or reward, or we call it as return. And the capital means the machine intermediary products will receive the interest, and the entrepreneurs will receive profit. Okay, so these are the 4 returns that we need to sum up if we are using the income approach to calculate the GDP. All right, so in short, the GDP for income approach is using rent plus wage, or we call it salary, plus interest for the capital and plus profit for the entrepreneur. All right, so this formula you need to remember. Okay, so let us try one example. Okay, so according to example 3, the value of the return already given for each factors of production, the value already given. Okay, according to this, the wages is 500. Income for rent and interest, that means it's combination of the capital and land return is equal to 100 million. All right, and then profit is equal to 200 million. So if you're asked to calculate the GDP by using the income approach, then you have to sum up all these income. Okay, so it's 500 plus 100 plus 200. I'll get 800 million. So far, so good. Okay, I stop for a while. Any questions so far? Okay, so the main formula is this one for income approach. So far, so good, Okay. So in short, today we'll learn 3 types of approaches to calculate the GDP, or we call it national income, which are the output approach, followed by expenditure approach, followed by income approach. So according to the 2-sector circular model, it's assumed that, right, no matter which approach you use, you'll get the same GDP value. Okay? You'll get the same GDP value. Okay, then the next slide is like to show you also to explain to you the concept of nominal GDP and real GDP. What is the difference between these two, nominal and real GDP? Okay, so for nominal GDP is using the value of final production in the current year and quantity produced in the current year to calculate the value of GDP in a country. Yeah. So in short, if nominal GDP is applied, then the value of the product price and also the quantity produced of a country is using calculated year, or we call it as the current year. Yeah, current year is also called as calculated year. Okay, so I put here calculated year. Current means calculated. Okay, the recent one. Current means calculated. Usually it's the latest year, yeah? Latest year, calculated year. So if you're using the current year product price multiplies the quantity produced in the current year, that means this year, then the whole GDP is considered as nominal GDP. Okay. So on the other hand, then how about real GDP then? Real GDP, the difference is using the base year price, the base year product price. When calculating the GDP, yeah, is using the base year product price. What is the meaning of base year? Base year is referred to the original year or initial year. Okay. Base year means initial year. Base means initial. Or original year. Okay. Usually it will be the year in the past. Okay. Usually the year in the past, the price of the product value will be lower compared to the current year. Usually the price of the product in the previous year should be lower than the price in the current year. Okay. So if the base year price of the product is applied, then this type of calculation is called as real GDP. Okay, real GDP. That means is by using the base year price, that means we are try to remove the effect of price increase of the product, and this will remove the inflation effect. Inflation effect will be removed. Okay, so this is the good thing about using the real GDP. Okay, so let's try to apply how to calculate the nominal GDP and real GDP by using example 4A. Okay, so this following data are for an economy. An economy can be a nation or a country. Okay, if the base year is 2015, so 2015 is the initial year, original year, and 2016 is the calculated year. Okay, so you're asked to calculate nominal GDP and real GDP in 2016. Okay, so we start from part 1, nominal GDP. Nominal GDP, that means we have to use the current year price and quantity to do the GDP calculation. So that means we just need to focus on 2016 only. Okay, so for this economy, we assume that there are only two products being produced, apples and oranges only. So in 2016, 160 apples were produced, and the price was $1 for each apple. Okay, and then the oranges produced 220 units being produced for oranges, and each orange has the value of $2 in 2016. So if you want to calculate the nominal GDP in 2016, what can we do is we just need to use the price multiply quantity for each item, for each product. So for apple is using 160 multiply 1, right? Then plus the orange quantity multiply price is 220 multiply 2, right? So it's from here, get the answer. then simplify. So for Apple, the total final products value for Apple is 160 in 2016. All right, and then the final products for Orange value is equal to 440. So sum of these two items, you'll get $600. Okay, so this is for nominal GDP in 2016. Okay, how about if we want to calculate the real GDP in 2016 then? Okay, if that's the case, we have to use the initial price for both products. Okay, when we want to calculate the real GDP, we need to use the 2015 price for Apple and oranges to do the calculation. Okay, so what can we do is the quantity is still using 2016, right? Quantity for Apple is 260 and quantity for orange is 220 for year 2016. Okay, but the price now we have to use the price of Apple in 2015, okay, which is 0.5, substitute to here. And then for the price of orange in 2015 is 25 cents. So substitute this number to here. Okay, so the difference is only the price. For real GDP, we have to use the original or the initial year price or base year price when doing the calculation for real GDP. All right. Then the next step is to simplify this mathematical equation. So 160 multiplied 0.5, I'll get 80. And then for oranges, the GDP contribution is 220 multiplied 0.25, so you'll get 55. So sum up these two numbers, I'll get $135. So you may find that the difference between these two values seems to be very high. It's very high, right, the number? Because for nominal GDP is using the calculated year product price. But for real GDP is using the base year product price to do the calculation. Okay, so one example is not enough. Let's try one more example. Right. So let's say now this example is assume that, okay, an island economy, there is one place, the economy is, okay, able to produce bananas and coconuts only. Assume that this country can only produce two things, bananas and coconuts. Okay, and table below show the quantities produced and also prices for these two products in 2015 and 2016. And we have to use 2015 as the base year. Base year means the comparison year, the original year or initial year. Okay, part one, calculate the nominal GDP in 2015. Nominal in 2015. So that means we just focus on 2015 only. We only need to use this table. Okay, nominal GDP for 2015. So that means we have to use the price and quantity of both products in 2015 in order to do the calculation. So we just need to focus on this table for question 1, part 1. Okay, so nominal GDP for 2015 is, okay, banana GDP is 100 multiplied 10. Okay, you get this answer. And then plus the coconut GDP is 50 multiplied 12. Simplify, you'll get 1,600. So part 1, okay, okay, part 2. Part 2 is calculate the nominal GDP in 2016. Okay, 2016. So that means we just need to focus on this blue table, the second table only, right? First table can ignore. Focus on second table only, So that means we have to use the 2016 price and quantity in order to calculate the GDP in 2016. Okay, so for banana, GDP calculation is using 110 multiply 15, substitute to here. Coconut is 60 multiply 10, substitute to here. Simplify, you'll get 2250. Part 2, okay? Okay, part 3. Real GDP. Real, this is a keyword. Real GDP. Be careful, real GDP. In 2016. Okay, so what is the formula then to calculate the real GDP? So that means we have to use the quantity in 2016 multiplied the price in 2015 because it's real. Real, that means we have to use the base year price. We have to use the 2015 price. Okay, but the quantity had to use 2016. Okay, so we start from banana, yeah. Banana, okay, the quantity is 110, right? But the price had to use 2015 price. Which one? This one, this number I have to substitute here. All right. Quantity for 2016 is 110, substitute here. Okay. Then the next item is coconut. Coconut, okay, we need to use 2016 quantity. Okay, substitute this number to here. And then the price for coconut, we have to use 2015 using the best year price. Substitute this number to here. Are you okay? I stop for a while. Are you okay with these two numbers? Do you know what is the reason we have to use 10 and 12 here? Because the question is real GDP, real, yeah? Real, that means we have to use the best year price for both products. Okay. Okay, now simplify, yeah, for each term. Okay, for banana, simplify, you'll get 1100, yeah? And then for coconut, the GDP contribution is 720. So simplify, you'll get $1820 for the real GDP in 2016. Any questions so far? Any question? Okay. Then in short, what we have learned today for this chapter. Okay, so at the beginning of this chapter, we already learned the difference between micro and macroeconomics, right? So microeconomics focus on the individual choices and interactions in an economy, right? Whereby for macroeconomic study, focus on the entire economic phenomenon. And that can also include the international trade economy as well. Global means international trade. Okay. So macroeconomics are focused on three things usually, three issues, which are the economic growth, followed by inflation, followed by employment. Inflation, okay, for employment, we are going to study in more detail in the next chapter. Yeah. So inflation is happen when the general price level of the products or services in the country increasing dramatically. Okay, overall price of goods and services in an economy increase dramatically throughout a period that is considered as inflation. Okay. We are going to study in more detail. So this is macroeconomic issue. So I repeat, there are three major macroeconomic issues that we are going to study in the next chapter, which are the economic growth, followed by inflation, followed by unemployment. Unemployment means the rate of population who cannot get job in an economy. Okay? So these are the macroeconomic issue. Okay, then the next step, the next chapter the next section that we learn is about how to calculate the GDP value by using three approaches. Right? So namely, we already studied the output approach, or we call it as the production approach, or we call it as output approach. Okay, followed by expenditure approach, followed by income approach. So for expenditure approach, you have to use this formula, right? C plus I plus X minus M. For the income approach, you need to use the income received by the four factors of production. Okay. For the output approach, you should only include the value of the final goods only. Production approach only focus on the value of final goods. Intermediate goods should not be included in the GDP calculation for production approach. And some other goods or transaction of business also cannot be included in the production approach on this one. Okay. If the products are for self-consumption without business transaction in the market, is also not included in the GDP calculation. And if the business transaction is involving financial transactions such as stocks and bonds and interest, also should not be included, because all these transactions do not generate productive values to the economy. Okay, so should not be included in the GDP. And also the second-hand products, like cars, All house should not be included as well. All cloth. Transfer payments are referred to the financial aids given either by the government or by the private sector to the poor people, also should not be included, because the recipient of the transfer payment are not going to generate productive activities for the country, so it should not be included in the GDP calculation. And lastly is the intermediate goods. Intermediate goods are the goods used to produce final goods in future, also should not be included under the GDP calculation. Okay, so these are the things that you have to remember. And lastly, we also learn the difference between the nominal and the real GDP calculation. So what is the difference then? The difference is only the price of the product. That is the difference. For nominal, is using the calculated price. That means the current year price. Okay. But for real GDP, is using the base year price for calculating the GDP. That is the only difference. So real GDP is using the base year price. Nominal GDP is using the current year price. Okay, so any question before we call it a day? So we're already done the first chapter of macroeconomics. Hello, yep, any questions so far? So far so good, huh? So far I think the only doubt is this one, right? The two sector floor model, yeah. So this model actually you just need to, the reason I introduced to you is because I just want to show you why the total expenditure of a country is equal to total income of a country. Okay, why expenditure and income are similar. Okay, so this is the only reason why this model been introduced to you. Okay. Yeah, I think somebody would like to ask question, right? Hello. Any question that I would like to ask? No, okay. So tomorrow we are going to have another class again, right? Okay, so for the tomorrow class, we are going to discuss the tutorial questions. So it's good that you have to do some tutorial question tomorrow, before tomorrow class. We are going to meet at 11 o'clock. So that means go back home. Please try the tutorial question, all right? When you're still fresh with the concept of national income, it's good that immediately you can try the tutorial question. Not many, all right? So where can we get the tutorial questions? Okay, I have to go to module, go to week number 9, suppose, week 9. This one, all right? Week 9 tutorials. There are 2 set of questions. So summative question or objective questions. Yes.
Teacher.
You're not showing the screen.
Okay, all right. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for reminding. So I'll share with you how to get the tutorial question. Okay. So I'll show you one more time. So in order to get a tutorial question, you have to go to modules. All right. Then go to week 9. This week is already week 9. Okay, week 9 already this week. Okay. So go to this module, week 9 tutorials module. Click on this. Right. So there are 2 sets of questions, summative and formative question. So summative question will be consist of objective question. Tomorrow we are going to discuss. So please try to spend some time to do the question so that we can discuss together. Yeah. So this is the one. So consist. Yes.
For the summative exercise number 5. The 4th sector economy is referred as what? I can't find it in the slide also.
Oh, okay. Yep. Okay. Good question. All right. Okay, a good question. Okay, let me try to do this. Okay. So in this model, we only focus on 2 sector, right? 2 sector is include. Okay, I better use another slide. Okay. If 2 sector means 2 sector means household and firm. Okay, firms means private producers. Okay, if three sector.
Teacher.
Yes. Okay. Oh yeah, I need to share the screen. Okay. Yeah. On. Okay, can you see the screen now? All right. So two sector means involve household and firm sector only. Okay, private firm. Firm sector is referred to the private firms. Okay. If three sector, what is the meaning then? Three sector is referred to households, okay, plus private firms plus government. Okay, this one put plus. So far, okay. If involve government, that means three sector. All right. So how about four sector? Four sector economy. Four sector economy is involving four parties, which are household, firms. Firms is refer to the private firms, government, and another one would be the international trade. So it's involved export and import. If a country is involved import and export, right, that means it's involved international trade. Okay, so this will involve four sector of economy transaction. And fourth sector, we call this as the open economy. Okay, it's an open economy. Okay, if without international trade, it's only involve the internal household and private firms or government. We call these two as closed economy. Should be D. So am I answering your question? I think just now got one question, have a doubt on fourth sector, right? Fourth sector is also called as open economy. Okay, that involve the international trade. That means involve the export and import. Okay. Any other question beside this one? Yeah, good question. Yeah. Any other question that you'd like to ask? Okay, so probably by today, yeah, you can try the summative question. And then the formative question, also not many. Let me check formative questions. I try to share with all of you. Okay, so for formative question, we have first question is asking you to identify whether the following business transaction is categorized as either C, I, or G, or not at all. Yeah, so you need, this is test of understanding on the expenditure approach to calculate the GDP value. So part one. Part two is using the production approach, or we call it output approach. Okay, so for calculation, you need to only include the final product value for question 2. Question 3 is to test your understanding on also the production approach. Okay, what are the activities that should not be included in the output approach. And then question 4 is to test your understanding on the difference between nominal and real GDP. So I think you should be able to finish all the question quite fast. Okay. So tomorrow, if we got extra time, we can also go through the assignment report. Okay, we can go through some discussion on how to answer the assignment report questions.
Sir?
Yes.
For question 3, what should we write?
Question 3, identify at least 4 transactions. Okay, you have to identify what are the business transactions that should not be included in the GDP calculation when using the output approach. Like for instance, second-hand business. Okay, buying second-hand goods are not included in the GDP calculation for output approach. One of the example, okay, second-hand products, and also the public transport payment also not included under this approach as well. Okay, so there are plenty. You can refer to this slide here. Okay, in order to answer this question, you can refer to the summary. Okay, I try to share the screen. Here, right? These are the business transactions that should not be included in the GDP calculation of production approach, or we call it as output approach. Okay. Okay, so for tomorrow, if you got any question on the assignment, you can ask. Okay, after we discuss the tutorial question, then we can discuss the assignment report. Okay, on how to answer the question, what should cover, what should not be covered. We'll discuss. Because the due date to submit the assignment is, let me check again. The assignment had to be submitted in week 11, right? So this week is already week 9. So about 2 weeks to go. Okay. So any other question before we call a day? We'll stop at 12:30. So far so good. Okay. Okay, then that means after tomorrow we have a replacement class on Monday. Let me check again. Monday class we are going to proceed to new chapter, whereby we are going to discuss the 3 macroeconomics problems. Our replacement class is on the 9th of November. We have replacement class. We are going to proceed to chapter number 9. Okay, chapter number 9 on the macroeconomics. Anyway, I'm going to send you one more email to remind you about the replacement class on 9th of November. We are going to start the class at 4 o'clock. Okay, 4 to about 5:30 Malaysia time. Okay. Any other question that I'd like to ask? NP, yeah. Let me see. The meeting chat usually got something, right? Usually, I think last week I missed some of the meeting chat question. Okay, today there is no question from the meeting chat. Any other question that I'd like to ask? How about the quiz 2? Okay, I think most of you already attended the quiz 2, except one student haven't. Ren is not here today. Ren has not attended the quiz 2 yet. Ren. Others already. David is not here today. David Wong. Okay. If not other question, we'll just call a day.
Sir?
Yeah.
Do we have presentation for assignment?
No need. there is no oral presentation. You just need to submit the written report to the Canvas through Turnitin. No oral presentation. But last time before the MCO, yes, the student had to present the work face to face. But because of MCO, I feel that it's like troublesome also for students to do that. So we removed that part. We removed the assessment component for oral presentation. You just need to focus on the written report for the group assignment. Okay, and only one representative needs to submit the written report because I already divide you into different teams based on your assignment group. So if one student submit the report, then the system will help to calculate or generate the marks for other members as well. Okay. So only one member need to submit the written report to the Canvas through Turnitin. Okay. Yeah. Any other question? For tomorrow, I think I'll discuss the assignment because some student already emailed me on how to prepare the report. So I'd like to share with all of you tomorrow. Okay. On whether you should discuss only one firm or you have to include all of the firms or cover all of the market structures or just focus on one market structure. Right? Because some of the questions require you to discuss 4 market structures, but some questions only asking to focus on one market structure. Yeah. So I'd like to share with you which question require you to discuss all of the 4 market structures. Okay. Any other questions before we call a day? Okay, if you are not really familiar with what we have covered today, you can also try to read the book chapter. Okay, I already scanned the book chapter for you as well. Okay, you can go to modules, then go to week 8. If you want to have extra reading, you can go to week 8 lecture. Okay, scroll down. Okay, so you can read this one. There are 2 book chapters that scan for you to read. So this one is mostly on introduction of macroeconomics, but you just need to focus on certain pages. Okay, 218 and 219 only. Please read these 2 pages only enough. And then for the 3 approaches of the GDP calculation plus the difference between nominal and real GDP, you can read this book chapter. Okay, so that you can have more understanding on the concept for national income. Okay. If no other question, then just call a day, right? And then for the video, our Microsoft Teams meeting today, I'm going to convert into a video and post on the Canvas under the discussion forum section, just like what Dr. Chai has done, okay, for the video. Okay, so bye-bye. So see you, take care. Yeah, stay safe. Don't come to campus because our campus is not safe at the moment.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, bye-bye. See you. Yeah, see you tomorrow.
Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye, Jason. Yeah. Let me have to unrecord first. Stop recording.